Today is a special day, very, very special day. We have two people here from Oakland, and Annalee Allen, coordinator of Oakland Tourist Program, and she is a historian, and with Dennis Evanosky. He is another person here that can tell you anything and everything about Oakland, and we were talking about Bay Farm Island, which now is an affluent community. Am I right, Dennis?
Yes, it is.
Very affluent.
Right.
High dollar.
Right.
Wow.
It was once Asparagus Island, they called it.
Asparagus Island.
There's a very famous man who used that name, we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of his death this year. It's Jack London. And
Oh yeah.
Jack London used to patrol down there, and he actually wrote about it in his writings. He referred to Bay Farm Island as Asparagus Island.
Asparagus Island. Full of rabbits and asparagus, huh?
Rabbits and
asparagus.
asparagus.
And now it's full of people.
And full of people. They also raised something very important down there for a time. It was the hops for the beer.
Oh, really?
They grew the hops, and it was extremely important.
Wow. Oh, definitely. And Annalee, come on, dearie.
Yes.
You're sitting there smiling. You got something up your sleeve. We were talking about quilts.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
I'm excited. I work at Oakland City Hall.
Right.
And last week I got word on Facebook that these quilts were coming and being hung, and so I rushed downstairs to see. And sure enough, later that day, the New York Times had a full-page feature story with pictures and an online slideshow, and so I had to get to the bottom of that, and it turns out it is the work of a group of ladies who've been working out of the West Oakland Branch Library for probably 10, 12 years, and they're known as the African American Quilt Guild of Oakland, and they've been working on a series of quilts about Oakland, all the Oakland neighborhoods. They have about 100 in this series, and they're going to be showing them all throughout the year, but particularly now for Black History Month. So there's about 8 or 9 of these on display at Oakland City Hall right now. And so I'm really excited because I get to do tours of City Hall, and I can't wait to bring people upstairs and let them see these wonderful quilts.
I have a question for both of you. Dennis, you first. What is it about Oakland that so much is happening and so many things have happened here, and there's so much good stuff here, historical good stuff about houses and roads and people, and nobody knows about it?
Well, I think that one of the things, and one of our jobs as historians is to make people more aware. Doing something like this, for example, is very exciting to me because it makes people more aware of the city of Oakland and the good side of the city of Oakland, and for me, the interesting side of the city of Oakland. To tell you the truth, if it happened in the 20th century, I pretty much glaze over. I'm interested in from the founding of the city in 1852 until probably around 1902.
That's what I'm talking about. Oakland has a diverse history.
Right.
It's got a lot of good stuff that's
Right.
happened here.
Right.
And people seem to think, well, you know, there's nothing happening in Oakland. It's like a microcosm has existed and they have no idea what's under their feet.
They don't know. They have no idea.
I'm serious.
They don't. They don't, and there's so many. I think the best way to put it, there's layers of history in Oakland that we're just not aware of. I live in the Laurel District, and the Laurel District was nothing but a bunch of fields with cows on it until about 1912, and we were lucky enough to be going through a bunch of pictures a little while ago, and small photographs, and my business partner Eric Koss looked at 2 of these and said, this is a panorama if you put them together. And it was a panorama of the Laurel District, and it showed the fields and the cows grazing, the old dairy that used to be there. And then what you want to realize, however, is this was the pathway that the Spanish took when they came through here in the 1770s. They came through, they visited Oakland. People aren't aware of this. The Spanish visited Oakland 3 different times. 1770, 1772, and then the famous Anza expedition, and then the Spanish decided to settle here. When Luis Marie Peralta was given a land grant.
Peralta.
Yeah, Peralta. And his son chose a spot along a road that is now named for President Coolidge. The street was called Peralta, but there was a time when the Laurel District, and this is another interesting thing about Oakland, is that Oakland is nothing more than a collection of small villages, all diverse, all different, all with their own stories. And the Laurel and the Diamond District has this very special story because it's the very epicenter of the founding, not just of Oakland, but of California. Antonio Maria Peralta chose this spot to put his villa and his adobes. And this is something that a lot of people aren't aware of. They actually stole the name of the street. West Oakland is at fault, by the way. We had Peralta Street, and then you have another Peralta Street, Peralta Avenue, I think it's actually over in West Oakland. And when in 1908, the people voted in the Laurel District to join Oakland. You can't have two Peraltas, and so they named the other one Coolidge. So wow. now you got to see. This is my point. There are these layers of history that people need to be aware of, and the best place to go is one of the most fascinating things I've been involved in lately. I was lucky enough to be the historian on a video called Trailhead, which looks at Joaquin Miller Park.
Wow!
And that goes back even further to when the redwoods were up on the hills. Oakland had a marvelous, huge 5 square mile forest of redwood trees that were all taken down by 1860. Let's say the redwood trees were all gone.
And you know, Annalee, I have in front of me an African American walking tour of downtown Oakland, and it looks very interesting.
It is interesting. It's a fabulous tour, and it was developed about 8 or 9 years ago by folks with the nonprofit called Oakland Heritage Alliance, and then that was passed on to the city tour program, which I coordinate and run, and we developed it further. It was developed through the work of Dr. Haynes, who was Charles Haynes, who was the head of African American Museum and Library of Oakland, and while the building that they're in now was undergoing its renovation and restoration, we came up with this walking tour idea, and he's since gone on to Dallas, but he left us with this wonderful legacy of a walking tour through downtown Oakland, starting at the African American Museum and Library, which is at 14th and MLK Junior Way, and heading over towards Broadway and back. And interestingly enough, it dovetails with this current day proposal to the council is considering and will be voting on soon, which is a Black Arts and Business District. And it looks at the 14th Street corridor from AMLO, which is the acronym for the museum and library, from AMLO over to the Malanga Castleord Center for the Arts, which is at Alice and Broadway. It's across the corner from where Chauncey Bailey was shot, just interestingly enough. So the walking tour that Dr. Haynes gave us all those years ago is overlays what this business and arts district is going to be. So we're already on board with that, and we're already offering it on a regular basis to school groups. And
so how do people find you?
I'm at City Hall. I'm on the 9th floor. Come and see me anytime. I am on the city webpage, and it's really easy to find me. You just go to oaklandnet.com/walking-tours, and it takes you right to the section of the city webpage that talks about the different tours. We also do Chinese New Year tours, Jack London waterfront tours. We do a series of different kinds of tours, but the New Era, New Politics tour Dr. Haynes developed is our Black History Month tour. We're doing, the next one will be on Wednesday, February 17th, and then also on Saturday, February 27th. And in the meantime, school groups are requesting us to do this tour.
Now, that's historical stuff.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things is I was asking kids the other day some things about Oakland. They had no idea. Right. That's why I asked you the question. Yeah. The other thing is you have an event calendar here, the City of Oakland, you know, in February for Black History Month. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, yes, there's a whole page, and West Oakland Branch Library is going to be kicking off a celebration of 50 years of the Black Panthers, with a talk on the life and legend of Huey Newton. And Frederica Newton and other family members will be there and speaking to people.
Interesting.
So you're going to hear about Black Panther history here, all coming up during 2016, because the establishment of Black Panthers was in 1966. Is that right? So 50 years.
50
Do the math.
years. 50
right.
years. 50
right.
years.
And then another plug for the Oakland History Room, which is in the main library at 125 Lakeside Drive. Our History Room librarian, Dorothy Lazard, is giving a talk this Wednesday evening at 6. And this is Dorothy right here. She is going to pull upon all the resources that she has to talk about early Black settlement in Oakland and its evolution. So she'll have slides, and that's going to be it's a free talk, and it's this coming Wednesday. Really
wow.
Good.
The other
That's
thing
just a
I'm
sampling.
The other thing I'm looking at here is both of you are so enclosed in Oakland. You have so much information. You have so much knowledge. How do we get people to find you, Dennis?
I have a website called oaklandhistory.com.
Okay.
That Eric Koss and I put together, gosh, probably about 10 or 15 years ago, and it's up. And I'm always surprised to see, we get a monthly report how many people. I'm pleased and surprised to see how many visitors we get. And then I'm involved more in a couple of things. One is keeping the city on its toes when it comes down to what they want to do away with. Right now, for example, I'm involved with somebody, in my opinion, behind everybody's back, try to destroy the Laurel Theater. I live in the Laurel District. I've written a book about the Laurel District. In the Laurel District book, I feature the Laurel Theater, and then we just discovered that if we weren't paying attention, they were going to tear the building down and put a new building up. And now I'm involved in that way. But I also do a lot of walking tours. And when the summer comes up, I'll be doing Oakland Heritage Alliance tours, and I also am a tour guide at Mountain View Cemetery. Mm-hmm. And this. Oh,
you know a lot of famous people.
A lot of famous people,
they're your friends.
They're all my buddies. Yeah, they're all. We have Michael Coburn and I have. I wrote volume 1 of this Mountain View history book, and then Michael Coburn and I got together and wrote volume 2, and we call volume 2 "Lives of the Dead."
Oh my God!
And so and one of the things that we feature. And one of the things that surprises us as much as to see early on, and one of the intriguing questions I'd like to find out here, and maybe Dorothy can help us with this sometime, is there are so few Blacks buried in Mountain View Cemetery very early on. There must have been somewhere an African American cemetery that's lost and forgotten. There has to be.
Well, it's probably covered up and got buildings over it.
Well, yeah, it's don't.
So watch them spirits if you're in a building that's built
exactly
60, 70 years ago.
Right.
You see people walking around,
exactly.
waving at you, says hi, and don't run.
Right, don't run. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Annalee, the celebration life of Huey P. Newton. I see it's in the library paper here.
Yes.
This is a very influencing paper. I'm looking at it, I'm kind of thumbing through it. It's a 4-page deal here, and it's crowded with stuff.
Yes. The library, our library system here in Oakland is outstanding, and the main library, and also the old Carnegie Library is now the home to the African American Museum and Library, which is L.U. Harris, our second mayor of color who served in Oakland, Lionel Wilson being the first. It was after the Loma Prieta earthquake, and he was mayor, and he said this building needs to be refurbished and dedicated to African American life and culture, and so he led the way in Sacramento to get the funds to do that, and so it's a wonderful facility, and a lot of people just don't know about it, and that's why we start our tour there. So with the West Oakland Branch Library, where the quilters meet, a lot of things going on there. It's just everywhere you look. The Oakland Tribune is kind enough to let us do this whole sheet. One of the other things mentioned is the the Walk of Fame on 7th Street, where in West Oakland, where all the music was going on. We have
wow, we just had Ronnie on here.
Yeah, Ronnie, did you talk about this?
Yes, and he was talking about all the stuff that's happened. I have a question to ask you. This is about Alameda. What is the name of the bar right there on Webster, right there by Park West, or whatever they call that, right there, and it's been there for a zillion years.
The bar?
It's
Is that Kroll's?
Kroll's.
Yes.
Gone.
That's it.
Kroll's.
Yes.
How old is Kroll's?
Kroll's was founded, the building was put up in 1878.
Oh, God.
It was put up originally as a hotel. The Britt family put it up as a hotel.
Back when Alameda was part of Oakland.
Back when Alameda, well, not quite, not yet.
Attached to Oakland.
Right, right. Well, so what Annalee is saying, you know, Alameda is an island, but it wasn't always an island.
Oh.
Alameda was separated from the mainland. They started it in the 1870s, and the idea was they were going to fix it, put a dam over by San Leandro Bay, and then open up the dam, and the water was going to whoosh through and clean out the estuary. Well, if you ever seen San Leandro Bay, it don't whoosh anywhere. And so that didn't work. But what Annalee's saying, up until 1902, Alameda was attached to the mainland, and now it's the island city. And but what happened is they put a couple of railroads through here, and in 1878 they ran a railroad down what's now Central Avenue, and then the Brits put the hotel there, and then later on Mr. Kroll came over from Oakland, and he was a sportsman. He had all these boxers and all kinds of interesting things going on there. But that's and it's there now. It's called the 1400 Club. The 1400 is the name of the restaurant now. There was a little interesting claim that somebody said that they own the name Kroll's, even though they didn't. And so instead of fighting the bar that's there now, that's been there forever, the one you're talking about, is now called 1400. That's the address of the bar.
Yeah. Beautiful building.
It's a wonderful building.
That is naturally a historical building.
Right.
I love the way it looks. Tell me about the library and their involvement in everything in Black history.
Well, our history room is in the main library near the lake, is dedicated to all kinds of historical things, and the head librarian there is Dorothy Lazard, and she is, she is a wonderful resource, and has, since she's come on as the head librarian of the history room, has really expanded the files and the information on Black history. So we're really fortunate to have her. And by the same token, Rick Moss, who is the director of AMLO, is also, he comes from Los Angeles, and he comes actually from a museum background. I don't know if you've had him on before, but he's also serves on, he's an appointee by Governor Brown on the State Resources Commission. So he's more of a material culture kind of person as opposed to being a librarian. But he has an exhibit coming in on female civil rights. I haven't seen it yet because it opens next week, but it will be there for a couple of months. And so he gives us sort of a statewide perspective on things relating to the legacy and the culture and heritage of AMLO. One of the things about it's a repository of papers. Families, prominent families in the African American community have long donated their papers and their artifacts to the library for cataloging and for scholars. So for instance, the Dellums family, their letters, their correspondence.
Dellums, that's an old Oakland name, isn't it?
Yes, and we talk about him. Ronald Dellums, of course, longtime congressman, our mayor for 4 years, and then his uncle C.L. Dellums, who was very important to the Sleeping Car Porters Union, and the West Coast headquarters is out there on by 7th Street. So, and our train station just right over here near Jack London Square is the C.L. Dellums train station. So the Dellums family factors in very prominently, as does Lionel Wilson, as I mentioned, and Ellie Harris.
Ellie, he's been my friend since I met him in 66, 67.
Yeah. Well, both of us are Berkeley High alums.
There you go.
Now, you graduated a little before me.
Right.
But when he came in as mayor, that's when I started getting involved with things, and he was one of my, he promoted me to doing what I'm doing now.
Okay, we're going to take a break here in a minute, and we're going to be back in the shake, and we got Annalee and Dennis here from Oakland telling you what it's all about. Chief, we're back here again with Annalee Allen and Dennis Evanosky. You know, that name, it reminds me of somebody artistic, intelligent, highly coordinated, because it just got something psychological about it. I'm going to say that, okay?
Right.
Did I get you?
Right.
You want to, Annalee, you want to tell us about Martin Luther King's trip to Oakland.
Yes, well, he was here, the research shows, and I also write for a local paper. I'm a columnist for the Oakland Tribune, and so I have access to their archives, which has been great over the years, to find clips to back up the research for our tours. And one time I learned that the fact that Martin Luther King was here in late December 31st, 1962, on the eve of the anniversary of the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. So he gave a speech while he was here on the eve of that important date, and at the Oakland Auditorium. And the article says that how many people joined him to hear that speech. So that was an important speech that he gave, and he gave it in Oakland. So
most people don't have any idea that Martin Luther King has been to Oakland. If you asked a million people here, they could not tell you yes.
Well, he was here a few different times, but that one to me seemed like the most significant. And then, of course, after his death in 1968, within a short time, a lot of people started advocating to have his birthday, January 15th, declared a holiday. And a lot of it started in Oakland with the work of Oakland Technical High School students who went to Sacramento and petitioned Governor Brown, who was governor the first time around, to have the birthday honored as a state holiday. And so one of the clips from the Tribune I would really like to show people is it shows Governor Brown as a young man with hair, as opposed to now when he has no hair. And seated.
I'm looking at you. I just saw a picture of you someplace. Oh, where was that? Oh, there you are.
Yes, that's right. My picture
is spiffy and ready to charge.
That's it, every week. So, okay, so here's the picture, and sitting on either side of him.
And this is?
Lionel Wilson.
Lionel Wilson.
Served in as our first African-American mayor, starting in 1977. And he's flanked on, Governor Brown is flanked on the other side by our second African-American mayor, Elihu Harris.
Yep.
Who you told me you know well.
Yeah, since the 60s.
Yes,
yeah.
Well, and he's a Berkeley fellow just like me.
Yeah.
And so when this picture was taken, no one would have ever in their wildest dreams guessed that Jerry Brown would someday be mayor of Oakland too.
Nope.
So here you have three Oakland mayors all seated together, and what they're doing is, in the picture is signing the state Martin Luther King holiday birthday. And the students standing in back are from Oakland Technical High School. So eventually, state by state by state, made.
And Arizona was the holdout.
They were the holdout, but now all 50 states, of course, acknowledge it.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's another Oakland story. And there's so many of them, and it's been such an honor and privilege for me to try to uncover all these things and share what I've learned on tours and in articles.
There you go. Dennis.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about Telegraph.
What about
Telegraph Avenue? How that developed to what it is today?
Well, Telegraph Avenue originally, the interesting thing about Telegraph Avenue is that it wasn't always where it is now.
Oh, really?
What happened was the telegraph wires were laid into. It's called Telegraph Avenue for a reason, because it's the road that had the original telegraph wires into Oakland. The telegraph wires came over the hill behind the Claremont Hotel. And if you've ever been on that hill behind the Claremont Hotel, it is a pretty scary hill if you could picture back in the day coming down that hill in a stagecoach. And that was the only way, until they put the tunnel and the tubes in, and up there in the Caldecott, that was the only way into Oakland, was down that hill. And they used that byway to run the telegraph wires into Oakland. And then, you see what I'm saying, there's layers of history here that people aren't aware of. And the other thing that happened was part of that, when you go to Telegraph in Claremont, Telegraph goes straight into Berkeley. Claremont goes up into the hills. Well, the interesting thing is this: Claremont used to be called Telegraph, and then when they started developing it, you know, the rich people, they can't live on Telegraph Avenue. You know, that doesn't, and so they changed the name to Claremont. To go with the Claremont, exactly. So you have this connection of the hotel that the transportation people built up in the hills, and that road led up there. And you know, like I say, the rich people, they can't get on Telegraph Avenue, so they got to get on Claremont. Doesn't that sound better? And
didn't the Pony Express?
And the Pony also.
Before
also, what happened is the poor Pony Express guy, when the Pony Express ran for a very short period of time.
Sure.
But the poor guy, they would have. He would be riding from somewhere out west in Nevada all the way to Sacramento, and they had a ferry waiting for him at Sacramento, and if he missed the ferry, they had to keep going down into Oakland, and he had to ride that hill that I just described.
Wow.
Down into Oakland, down.
I know what you're talking about. That is a hill.
Right, that's a hill.
Wow.
And it's so, you have to know it's there. Here's another layer of history thing. There's a couple of places there. They're hard to recognize now, but next time, if you're up on the top of that hill and you come on down, you'll notice there are roads that don't go anywhere off to the left and the right. Those roads are in there to stop galloping horses, to force them off the road so they don't gallop down the whole hill. And they're gone now. I mean,
wow.
And the other thing is, right at the top of the hill, there used to be a hotel up there. And if you use your imagination, you can say, "Oh yeah, I can see where the building used to be. There was not a little hotel, there was a big hotel up there."
Wow.
So all these, like I say, all these layers of history.
Are we moving too fast?
Yes.
Are we moving too fast and we're desecrating a lot of history in Oakland?
I would say a good example of this is the Laurel Theater. That if we historians, especially the Oakland Heritage Alliance, Amelia Marshall and friends weren't paying attention, that Laurel Theater would have come down, because they try to do this backdoor non-public. So it's thanks to the Oakland Heritage Alliance. The answer is no.
They saved the Fox
Had there not been, yes, had there not, if we don't have people like Amelia and Naomi Schiff and other people that are really interested in keeping things intact, more of Oakland's history would be gone. And hopefully I can come back in a couple of years from now and say the Laurel Theater is still there. Right now, the city's trying to tell us just going to take it down. And Amelia Marshall said if she has to chain herself to the front of the theater.
Wow. I want to ask both of you a question. Do you see Oakland moving toward the point where we're actually taking more and more and more of these buildings, and are we allowing Oakland to kind of move into an abyss where history is concerned?
Well, we have a situation where a mural was done on Alice Street at 14th just 2 years ago that everybody got really excited about, because it depicts not only Malanga Castleord himself, who was a Haitian drummer of note who died tragically in an accident, and the Alice Art Center was renamed for him, and where Ruth Beckford and others in the arts community are depicted in a very vibrant way. But and it covers over what was continually being tagged and a lot of bad graffiti and stuff. So, but it's a parking lot, And because of all the interest in developers coming here and building condos, the Planning Commission's just approved a new condo development to go in that parking lot. And if that happens, the mural will be, you won't be able to see it anymore because the building will be in the way. And so some folks are really starting to get upset about that. And no sooner do we get a fabulous mural that celebrates the heritage, and then, along comes a big condo development. So the council's gonna hear about that. And people are concerned that just when we are starting to celebrate our heritage, development comes along and hides it. But it's a competing situation where, yes, we need more housing. What the arts community is saying, though, is that, well, none of the proposed housing it's all market rate. None of it's affordable. So.
We were talking about American Steel Studios a little bit ago.
Yeah.
Okay. I like American Steel Studios.
That's
I think it's iconic. I think it's a fabulous venture. I think it says that is actually part of Oakland, and the change of us seeing and everything that's changing. I would hate to see that go.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is just one example of our past and our history that could just disappear. And one of the problems we're having now is we're seeing a lot happening at once, because for a long time we were in a recession,
right? And
the building boom stopped. Now we're back in that again. Right. And you can't go anywhere. There are a lot of places in Oakland, American Steel, for example, is one, that it just makes me nervous to see what they're doing to the heritage that was once there. Another example is when you go on Piedmont Avenue up into near Mountain View Cemetery, right near the Chapel of the Chimes. There was the Amador Marble Company there. And they had been there in one shape or form or the other, not always in the spot they were in, since starting in 1863, 1864. And they just took that building down like it was a week old. They didn't care. Down the building came. It was one of my favorite spots to go because they had all this interesting, they built a lot of the marble that you saw inside of Mountain View Cemetery.
Wow.
Constructed all the marble. And it's gone. They took the building down. I was able, and sometimes my wife scratches her head and wonders what I'm going to do with this stuff, but I rescued all the record books from Amador Quarry from way back when. And
wow.
You actually they built some of the stone and some of the what's called coping, the borders, the marble borders around the places up in Mountain View, and all the records of all that stuff were in these books. And if they told me if I hadn't been there and taken the books, they were just going to throw the books away, because they were moving on. They went back to wherever Minnesota or something. The family that owned the quarry just moved to Minnesota, and it's a shame to see this heritage go without even a mention that it used to be there.
I think growth is inevitable. I don't argue with that. But it's how, when, and where they plan stuff, and who's involved. If somebody huge is involved, it just goes whoop and it's gone away. Right. Yeah, I think American Steel Studios is. God, I love that place. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, I love it.
It's a lot of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
The master tenant, an artist whose name I can't remember, was building these great installations for Burning Man.
Right.
And she took this empty warehouse nobody cared much about, and she needed that big space to do her work. And then she sublet it out to all these other artists, and they came. So that cluster of them. And that's where the magic happens. When
they have movie studios in there. They have photography studios. Right. They got everything in there. So how do you desecrate something that valuable?
Well, it's they took a building that nobody cared about, nobody was much paying attention to, and created this great art center. And then the building changes hands. The new owner wants to get his investment out of the deal. And what does he think about? He thinks about, well, I think I'll build housing here. And so we'll see. That's a long way from being a done deal.
Really? Tell me about the old train station out there, way out there.
Yeah, 16th and Wood.
16th and Wood.
Yeah, 16th and Wood.
Yeah.
been there. It's an older train. I mean, it's a newer train station. There are older ones around to point to, but this one dates from 1912, and it was really important in its day. It ceased to be a train station, though, on the day of the Loma Prieta earthquake, and it closed. And then we have subsequently they built the small train station over by Jack London Square that's named for C.L. Dulles. So anyway, the big building sits there empty. It's a landmark, and they've been trying ever since. It's protected because of its landmark status.
Okay.
So that's a good thing, but they're just trying to figure out what to do with it. And there's been some awesome parties there. Mayor Libby Schaaf just had a fabulous birthday party there a couple months ago, where she launched her the promise to young people to help them fund college, and it's a great place for parties.
It's a beautiful building.
Yeah, and it has a legacy. Some others want to highlight the history of the sleeping car porters there, and so that is actively being worked on. It's just going to take some money to.
I hate seeing things like that pass away.
But it won't. It's protected, so we'll just have to be patient. Sometimes, like the Fox Theater, for instance, Phil Tagami, somebody that you mentioned a moment ago, he's the one that got it going, figuring out that all the different pots of money that needed to come together in order to fix that theater. Back in Lionel Wilson's day was when it was saved from the wrecking ball, but it had to sit empty for years, and then finally all the ducks aligned in order, and now it's a fabulous arts center.
It's a beautiful. I was in there and once, and oh God, it's really nice.
And that kick-started all the other sort of art murmur, uptown arts activities that are going on once that theater opened again. So.
Yeah, both of you guys. One thing I really like is the way they've transformed the lower part of Oakland, right there down 3rd and 4th Street.
Right.
Some of those old buildings are still there, and they've converted them to condominiums and lofts and stuff.
Yeah.
New and old. There's the combination of older buildings that have been converted into lofts.
Right.
With new buildings. Jerry Brown, when he came back to town, he kind of got that going because he took a building and made it his headquarters for a while, long before he even started as mayor. So that is been revitalized.
It's
you have
down there.
Everett and Jones, is in an older beautiful warehouse building that they refurbished.
That's gorgeous down there.
I know.
That's what I like to see.
Yeah. That's the original part of the first part of Oakland to be developed, because they put a wharf there, and then Oakland eventually creeped its way from 1st Street up to its center now, 14th Street. In fact, there's something that, I like to talk about the layers of history. Somewhere around 12th and Broadway, or let's say more like where 15th and Broadway is now, Oakland was originally laid out only up to 14th.
Oh, really?
Beyond that, it was an oak forest. One really cool story about just that area there is there was a dueling ground there.
A what?
A dueling ground. And we know of one famous duel that was fought there, and the guy who was in the duel was a senator, David Broderick. He was a senator, and right there, right in Oakland, right about, let's say, right where 15th and Broadway is, there's a duel, and Broderick had a pocket watch. And that's what saved him. Later on, he got shot. He looked down. He's okay because the bullet hit his pocket. And this is right in what is now downtown Oakland. Later on, there's an interesting corollary to this story, because later on, Broderick got involved in another duel over in Lake Merritt with a pretty nasty Texas Ranger guy named David Terry, and Broderick was killed in the duel. The only, I like to say so far, the only sitting United States senator that killed in a duel happened over at Lake Merced. Wow. But that guy, Broderick, who was killed in that duel, had a duel over at 12th and Broadway. And this goes back to this, you have no idea, right? The wild,
Dueling.
Dueling and,
oh my God.
Dueling.
Bang, bang.
And dueling in downtown Oakland.
All right. We're going to take a break here. We'll be back in a minute with Dennis and Annalee, historians. Love you guys out there. With two of the most wonderful people that we've had in this year, this new year starting out. And we're going to talk about Robert Maynard, city manager.
Robert Maynard was the publisher of the Tribune.
Oh, publisher of the Tribune.
Yeah.
Oh, who did I get him mixed up with?
Henry Gardner.
Gardner.
Yeah.
Two icons of the city.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember him back from 1973, 74, 75.
He starts out in the Washington, D.C. area,
Right.
and eventually makes his way to California.
Right.
And a journalist of color, and eventually is able to acquire the Oakland Tribune, and first black publisher of a major metropolitan daily. He had the paper only a short time, but it happened to come about when the Loma Prieta earthquake happened in '89.
Right.
So he was given, his photographers won a Pulitzer Prize for their photographs of the Cypress structure.
Right.
What happened, though, unfortunately, with Robert Maynard is that he developed cancer. So
Yeah, I remember
he dies.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
dies prematurely, and then
I
his wife
remember that,
Nancy
yeah.
and is his
He
daughter.
was quite a person, quite
Yes.
a humanitarian.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember him.
So we
You know,
talked.
don't
about
ask
him.
my age, okay? Okay, let's talk about Miss Delilah Beasley.
Yes, Delilah Beasley is a journalist and a historian from the 1920s, and during the years when the Oakland Tribune was owned by the Nolan family, Joseph P. Nolan is thought of as a Republican and very conservative, but he did hire her to be a regular columnist in his paper, and so we have recorded all of these activities amongst the people of color in the community in the 20s and 30s. So now researchers can really kind of delve into it and understand it better. And so she was a trailblazer.
I'm gonna do something, okay? I always hear, every time I go on the street, I'm hearing, well, the people of color never did anything in Oakland. And I'm looking, people just don't have any idea, you know. John B. Williams.
John B. Williams was a redevelopment director, and that's a portion of the 980 freeway is the John B. Williams Freeway. He too, unfortunately, dies from cancer, or you would have known a lot more about what he did. But he helps develop downtown Oakland. He was a real city builder. So what you just said is totally not true. The era of the 60s and 70s and 80s was the era of black leadership in Oakland, where it transformed the city. Yeah.
People have no idea.
Well, that's why we have our tours.
I mean, the library system here is up and running and doing it, so to speak.
You got to go hear Dorothy Wednesday night.
Yes, we got to go
Dorothy
hear
will
Dorothy.
have something really interesting to say Wednesday night about not just, because as you can probably tell the way I'm talking, I'm more interested in the real early history, and there's a lot of research that needs to be done on the black contributions to Oakland history early on.
Yeah.
And this is what Dorothy's going to talk about Wednesday night.
Yeah, good.
You know, the two of you need to get out and start doing some kind of talks all over the place. Yeah. You know, I would like to see that, and I would like to see more people get included. The library system is very integral in Oakland. Right. This is what I'm trying to put out there, and people need to get out there and look at the library system, because it's the anchor of Oakland, and it's where everything is. And don't forget, Black History, we have shows all this month, so stay tuned, you know. We're going to have so much more. The month is just starting out, really. Dennis, I want to ask you a question. Broadway.
Yes.
The development of Broadway.
Yes.
Swans and all those buildings.
Right.
Tell me a little about that.
Well, this was the development you're talking about is in an era of history that revolved around let's say the inspiration people had to develop a downtown, the City Beautiful movement, part of the City Beautiful movement from the Chicago Fair. And so you have...
that was 1932?
No, this was early on. This was in 1893. So they bought these ideas back, and the City Hall is a good example of this. And this where the City Hall is now shows you how Oakland actually, as I said before, crept up Broadway. The first City Hall was in a building on 2nd and Broadway.
Wow!
And then there is one part of Broadway that kind of gets tucked away. I always say because the trees are in the way, and that's the Delger block. Frederick William Delger made his money early on, what I like to call mining the miners. Instead of mining for the gold, he made the shovels and the shoes and things like this, made his money that way. And then he invested his money in Broadway, in downtown Oakland, around 9th and Broadway. And you see, here comes Oakland creeping up. Suddenly we got it on 2nd and Broadway, then we got it on 9th and Broadway. Now City Center's up at 14th and Broadway. It's probably not going to go any further up. We do have Uptown along Broadway, and there's some interesting buildings up there at 22nd, for example.
The HC Capwell building is now going to be the Uber headquarters.
Right. And Uber's coming. Right. Uber's coming. I mean, that's going to focus some attention on 22nd in that area up in there, but 17th up about 22nd Street and Broadway.
But if you want to know about Swan's Market, Sherwood Swan in the 20s, 30s, 40s had a sort of a market hall kind of that, where they had vendors all under one roof. And today it is kind of reborn with some really neat restaurants and a fish market, and so it's the heart of what we call Old Oakland, and so it's where you go to go to a lot of cool restaurants.
Well, you know, I noticed that a lot of the old buildings down there have eateries in it.
Yes.
Go down there and, I mean, don't cook. Go down there and see your city.
Exactly.
See how it's transcended.
There's a lot of
it's gorgeous down there. It's really, really beautiful.
Well, we're doing the Black History Month tours, but starting in May, we'll be doing weekly tours in Old Oakland, Chinatown, Jack London Square, Wednesdays and Saturdays. So there'll be weekly free tours offered, and we'll be out there doing it.
I gotta ask you guys something. The one place that I really, really love in Oakland is Jack London Square.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Jack London Square.
And we're, as Jenna said earlier, Jack London, his birthday just happened in January, but he died at the age of 40 in 1916. So here we are, 2016, it's 100 years later. So starting with Jack London State Park up in Glen Ellen, and just all over the state, there are special commemorations of the life and times of Jack London. So we're part of that, and the Jack London Square is doing things. The Heinhold Saloon dates back. If he walked in there today, it would look exactly like it did.
He'd know exactly where he was.
That's right. The floor slopes down and everything. So
where is that at?
That's Heinhold's First and Last Chance Saloon.
Oh,
it's
the
near
Last
that
Chance,
cabin.
yeah.
They brought the cabin down from the Yukon.
Yeah.
So you're going to hear a lot about Jack London this year.
Right. Oakland is an array of different cultures, races, religions, and we're still there.
It's one of the beautiful things about Oakland is one of the things that I'm very proud of doing, and that happy I did was we well, I like to say we helped Jerry Brown win, because we went down and talked to him a little bit, and then we convinced him Oakland is not a city, it's a whole collection of diverse and different little neighborhoods. And you have to, if you're going to campaign the right way, you have to come out and see the Laurel District, where I live.
Yeah.
And I took him out, and myself and about 4 other people, we showed him around the Laurel District, but then we showed him how diverse Oakland was. You just take the Laurel District and you walk down MacArthur Boulevard, and I think we stopped counting at 9 different nationalities of people running, you name it, restaurants, especially restaurants. And
well, you know, you got one new group now that's coming that's kind of a little bit on the strange side, the techies.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
They're strange.
But
I shouldn't say that, but really, they just walk around the street. I mean, there's all this history there. You like everybody to get included. You like everybody to, you know. And I asked a lady the other day, did she know all right? She said, I go from my apartment to work in the city and back to my apartment in the evening. I really don't do anything.
That's their loss.
Right.
But that's the way they are. They don't appreciate a lot of what's going on around here. And it's people like the two of you that are really out here on the front lines that I, give the accolades to, that are actually making Oakland what it is today and keeping it what it is yesterday.
Keeping it interesting.
Pardon me?
Keeping it interesting.
Yeah. And it is interesting.
And the
you just
layers.
gotta get out.
You got to know about the layers.
Yeah.
Like that duel that went on.
Oh my God.
Right there in downtown Oakland.
The last thing I'd like to say, back to Jack London for a minute. One thing that's come to light is that he was raised essentially by Jenny Prentice, right, his foster mother, and she and her husband Alonzo were people of color in the the West Oakland community, and he loved her all his life. So talking about Jenny Prentice and her role is something we do now. This picture of Isabel Wilkerson, who wrote a wonderful book I recommend to anybody interested in history. It's called The Warmth of Other Suns. She talks about the Great Migration in 1950, 1920, when folks from the South, from like New Orleans and Alabama, Texas, come west via the rail lines, and Huey Newton's grandparents came here that way.
Wow.
So she has a whole book about that migration that took place. Others went up to Chicago, others went up to Harlem, as we know. So understanding her book and its impact on this region is been one of the better books I've read in a long time.
My auntie came out here in 1925.
To the war industries here, offered jobs.
Yeah,
and
right.
the Rosie the Riveters in Richmond, and the docks and the shipbuilding, Kaiser, all of that. And there was
$1.19 an hour.
And do you know where she worked or what she did?
She was a realtor.
Okay.
Her name was Addie Williams. The name ended up being Addie Reeves.
Mm-hmm. Well, Frederica Newton's mother is a realtor, and she, back in the day when there was redlining going on, and she was among the whites who sold to African American families in neighborhoods that were supposedly closed off. And that was another thing that Byron Rumford did.
Rumford
was the
lot of name people, big name people. Everybody talk about Mr. Rumford.
Yes, real quick. Byron Rumford was trained as a pharmacist, so that was his profession. But he offered his pharmacy on Sacramento Street in Berkeley as a place for people to meet and discuss politics of the day. And somebody convinced him to run for state legislature after World War II. He was the first African American to be elected to Sacramento and served, and was important with the Fair Housing Act.
Magnificent heritage Oakland is. We're here in Alameda right now, and we're looking at some of the buildings here that are still looking iconic and historic looking. They've actually taken this motif and actually brought it this time in life.
I want to know, excuse me, I want to know, what was this building? This building where you have your studio is used to be, I think, a power station.
It was a power station.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It was the power station.
I love when they take industrial buildings and turn them into
this
power
station. This whole area here was developed, let's say, between 1885 and I'm back in the 19th.
This is an old building.
But this is part of the Bethlehem Steel was here. Bethlehem Shipyards was here. In fact, Tynan, the street here, is named for a very important executive in Bethlehem Steel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
tell me something.
He's the guy. Tynan is the guy who was in charge of the shipbuilding for Bethlehem Steel. Bethlehem Steel was over in San Francisco,
right,
and they were right here building ships.
Right.
And you can go right down here and still see the shipways that are too expensive to take out. They're still there.
Let me tell you something. Chinatown.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the development of Chinatown.
Well, Oakland has a Chinatown even older than San Francisco.
Right.
But Oakland Chinatown wasn't originally where it is now. It was up on San Pablo.
Oh, really?
But let's say, what do you think? About 15th and 16th in San Pablo, a line of shops there, and they were thrown out of there. Developments threw them out of there, so they sent them down along the waterfront.
Where there was shrimp boats and small cabins for that, and then 8th and Webster Street.
Right.
So right through the Webster Street too, here, going to Chinatown. I'm going to be doing a tour on February 20th of Chinatown.
Interesting. Some of the buildings down there are very old.
Yeah, they are. And as I said, it's an older, more established Chinatown. One of my favorite things, I have a landlady who's from China, and first of all, it's my wife's favorite thing. She goes shopping with Oi Lin, and Oi Lin, of course, speaks Chinese, and Paulina gets in all these shops that she can't get into.
Wow.
And then my favorite thing, they come back with all this food. These different kinds of food from China.
When Jean Quan was elected our mayor, first woman mayor, first mayor of Chinese descent, she came with us on tours, and I learned so much. She told us all kinds of stuff about the Chinatown where she grew up. And she talks about how her great-grandfather was fled San Francisco after the '06 earthquake, and so many did that, and really got our East Bay Chinatown.
06 earthquake made topography and what's here, it changed everything.
Yeah.
A lot of people came this way.
Right, they were fled, and they stayed here in Oakland and helped Oakland grow. Yeah.
I'll be doggone. One of the things I want to ask the both of you, what's your insight for what's coming for the rest of the year?
I mean, for history, looking back at history, I hope to say that as the year goes on, we're going to be, when I say we, I'm talking about the city, is going to be paying more attention to being careful of things like the mural that Annalee talked about, the Laurel Theater that I talked about. I hope that the mural that's going to be hidden and the theater that might be taken down, these could be spurs for 2016 to make people understand that we still need to pay attention. And hopefully we can look back on 2016 and say, because things that happened early on in 2016, we are paying more attention to our history, we are paying more attention to preserving what we already have.
And I would say, you know, opportunities like you have here with your radio show is so great. But I've been working on some tours around Lake Merritt, and we've been doing a lot with Lake Merritt. A bond measure was passed, $198 million has been spent, 12th Street end of the lake, the new pathways, new footbridge, and
how much?
$198 million. If you live in Oakland, you voted for it. But anyway, in our old Oakland auditorium that's been closed for many years, I hope to see 2016 that we have a team in place to open that up again, and that's going to be exciting.
Yeah,
and the train station. We got the train station.
Right. The train station, and yeah, it'd be great to look back in 2017 and say the train station's open. And I always call it the Kaiser Auditorium is open because
Kaiser
for a little while.
It was named for Kaiser, Henry J. Kaiser, in the early '80s, but it was originally the Oakland Municipal Auditorium.
Yeah, it dates back even before our city hall. It was built. It showed up even before our city hall.
How did that name change come by?
Well, in the 1980s, when Henry Gardner was the city manager, there was work done to retrofit that building and refurbish it, and then there's recession hit some years later. Oh, and so they honored the reopening by naming it for Henry J. Kaiser. So now it's the recession in the early 2000s, and it was closed because the city couldn't afford to keep it open anymore. And the thought was it would only be closed for a year or two, but it's been over 10 years. So,
that's been a long time.
Right, so they're realizing now that was probably not a good idea, and they're going to bring it back.
Henry Kaiser did a lot right in that same neighborhood with development because there's two buildings there that he put up for his company, right across not very far away.
It's near Laney College.
Right.
And so with the footbridge and 12th Street all redone with that bond measure I told you about, it makes sense to open up the auditorium. So that's what we're working on. That's the big priority.
Yeah, hopefully, right.
That's going to be a beautiful area around there.
Yeah, it is now already. I mean, what they've done to 12th Street is absolutely.
So we've developed a new tour, and we'll be doing that more in coming year.
The boathouse is Lake Merritt.
Yes.
Beautiful, isn't it?
That was paid for by that bond, that $198 million.
Right.
Really?
Yes.
Right. It is so pretty in there now.
Yeah,
right.
Now.
Right.
It used to be old and funky and bad looking.
Right. There was offices in there, and they moved the offices out, and they refurbished it and turned it into a restaurant. That's part of the master plan for the lake. So a lot of interest in our lake, and it's paying off.
Right.
Well, tell me something. When was that building built?
That was in 1910, 1912.
All this goes back to the City Beautiful movement I talked about.